see Egypt swept into place up to attack Kadesh and Sidon. They'll take Tyre later. Actually, I think they're supposed to be done in the other order, but it doesn't hurt them to do them in the wrong order. This is just basically providing themselves with a good defensive line for when the Hittites hit. Hittites hit. Okay, let's look at what we got here. 6, 12. 8 more is 20. 30 to 6 is 5 to 1 over on the siege table. And nothing exciting about the sieges. One of the things looking at this, it feels almost like, you know, there's no way around these victory conditions. It's not like the Britannia game where you can kind of, I don't know, you kind of try to optimize, but then you have some luck. I don't feel like it's as interesting here. All right, 3, 1 smote, the weaker one, I guess. Now, the question is who wants to advance? We'll take him. And we kill Kadesh. I don't think that's worth anything to me. But we took Kadesh, which just got us 2 more victory points. And probably Kadesh lost their points. We may want to check that while we're at this. Eliminate 6 factors of Egyptians. Well, we failed at that. No idea how good balance is on this. My feeling is it's not going to have even the balance of power limitations that maybe Britannia does, or effects that Britannia does, just because some of it, at least the early stuff, seems so predetermined. 4, 10, 20, 30 to 6, 5 to 1 siege against Sidon. 3, we smite them. We don't get anything for Sidon. But we do get a point for occupying them. And we're going to pull these guys forward instead of one of the other sets. And we just got our score. Another point for Sidon here. So we've already gained 4 points. And we jump our way over here. City-state, Sidon. Occupy 1 through 5. No. They're not going to be worth shit to anyone. Maybe I'm missing some kind of cleverness that could be taking place here, but it's not like there's a naval ender on that the Hittites are going to be able to make. And that is... And these aren't doing anything. That's the end of our Egyptians. Next is the Marsh people in the Mitanni. I thought smote would be pretty minor, like, you know, 1 unit dies. All right, now 1 smote. Okay, the player's side with odds of 2 is totally smote, but 1 smote is the person who has odds of 1, i.e. the weaker side. Odds of 2, on the 2 to 1 it's possible to lose. But what I got was, and I wonder, attacker smote, well, that's 1 to 1, okay. Both smote happened here on the 2 to 1 attack on these Kassites. I'm trying to get enough positional advantage at J to take Babylon itself, because I need to get Marduk. Unfortunately, I rolled a both smote, and that's all attacking and defending units are eliminated. So we killed these suckers, and they killed all of our troops. Ouch. I gotta look to see if that's worth any victory points, but wow. With this more random combat table that I'm used to in games, wow. I surrounded the Mitanni here, but I was only able to get 2 to 1. I didn't count my odds terribly well. I could have sent less units in, but I declared they'd all attack, so I did. They got 2 to 1 on the siege. They took a 2 smote, which scores some big points for the Mitanni here. They get 2 points for destroying 16 factors of the Hittites, which I thought was impossible. And now they're pretty much guaranteed to get all 4 of their points available. You can see the Hittites withdrew back here, but they sent a couple of units down here to go take Ascalon and Gaza. They're probably not going to continue down to Memphis. They're just going to sweep back. And in a sense, Egypt doesn't really give a shit about that. But they might want to prevent the points. They don't really care too much because the Hittites have just been so decimated and Elam's been decimated. So why worry about them? Pad your own points. Well, we'll see what Egypt chooses to do on their own turn. But now we're over to the Kassites and to the Kassites and whatever's left of the city-states. And our Kassites run up to Mary, settle in Babylon with their full stack. A lot of strength there just to make sure that that doesn't fall. The Marsh people are kind of like, hey, where'd you go, man? We need you to attack. No point in doing anything with any of these that I can see. So we'll see what happens as we push into turn 3. Egyptians marched south and killed the Hittites who were down here. That's not enough points, though. They need to kill some more. They've only got 14. I think they need 16 to kill. And they may have a hard time because those Hittites no longer have a great goal in mind. I wanted to kill 12 of the Pharaoh's unit strength points, and I've succeeded in that with the Hittites. So we'll give them those 2 points, and they're not really terribly interested except for the 2 points for Gaza and Ascalon, which honestly I probably can't do. I'll get destroyed. So I may want to take another shot at the Mitanni. I have my siege engine here. I think that's what I'm going to try to do. This could be the end of the Hittites. And that's the end of turn 3. Before the Hittites went, actually, the Marsh people chose not to do anything. The Hittites did indeed take out Haran, and they actually got a decent amount of points for that. They get 4 points for occupying it on turns 2 or 3. This is turn 3 the last time, and they smote like sheep those the full army of those. So they're out of the game, actually, and I record that. I marked them off here. They're not going to come back with anything else. The Marsh people didn't do anything either. And when we came to the Kassites, well, they pretty much stayed where they are. They got to make sure they don't lose Babylon to the Marsh people, and they got to hold Mari. They got some points for this turn for Mari, but they've got to be there next turn for the second point. And, well, that's about it for that. So I'll set up the forces for the next turn. And we can see how kind of random and bloody and maybe fun this is. I'm enjoying myself in my own twisted way, and I could certainly see sitting down with a bunch of guys playing this. It was Game Apocalypse or Armageddon. Kerry, I can't remember his last name. I played it with him, a group of people who was doing several games of it over at Consim Expo. And he runs the SPI Wrecking Guard. And this reminds me kind of that, not just because of location. Armageddon is sort of a modern day, and you had all kinds of crap, running around. Just really, really kind of random, bloody, and messy. And this has that same spirit, even though that's kind of a more modernized game in that you have event cards and stuff to play in each other. This one almost feels like it would be hard to break away from some of the patterns. Now, there's a lot of luck on the combat table, so that makes up for a lot of it. Actually, that game's more of a buckets of dice game, so there's less luck in it because the dice are likely to even out. Here, it uses a rather extreme combat results tables that can really ruin your day real quick. But both are fun in the same sort of kind of, geez, what are you doing? type of atmosphere. In that one, the randomness is more something that the players control by the cards that they get and how they use them. Turn 4 brings in a couple more Egyptians to aid them in their tasks, which they're doing quite well on, and the Assyrian Empire. And Assyria, They're the bad boy of this era. They are the power for quite a while. As you may have noted if you watched my Assyrian Wars. It's a CDG. Very, very heavily complicated CDG. Has its flaws, but it may be the best thing in this kind of ancient era for a heavier game that I've seen, even though the rules are an absolute mess. Anyway, Egypt doesn't gain anything new here, but Assyria, man, they have a lot. First of all, they want to get Mary this turn. Gee, poor Babylon. They also have to kill a lot of Babylonians, more than are in Mary. They have to worry about the ones down here too, which is kind of problematic because the marsh people are interested in those too, and we're both the same color. That's going to cause issues. But we really need to take Babylonia because we need to take the Marduk piece there. If we're not careful, if the marsh people go grab that somehow, I don't think they have the forces to take Babylon, then I might have to attack my own people. There's no rules saying that you can, no rules saying you can't. I have to kill Kassites. Yeah, we talked about that. I got to kill me some Hittites by turn 8. All right, I got to make it into Canaan to kill Philistines, but they're not on the board yet. Subdue Judah, killing some factors. I have to take Susa by turn 8. Oh, boy, so much. I mean, Carchemish and Damascus on turn 9. So I can't do that yet. That's what, these two. Damascus doesn't look problematic yet, but let's see, or R2 when they come in. I got to take Memphis and kill 6 Egyptians by the end of turn 9. That sounds tricky. I almost feel like there's too many things that I have to do. The Egyptians are in good shape. I don't think I'm going to be able to wipe them out. But I would really like to attack them because they're doing well. To prevent some of their points, if I can take Memphis, that's a big amount of points that they hold on to otherwise. Kill some Cimmerians. Phrygians or occupy Tarsus. Now this is only 1 point, but Tarsus is way up here. This is actually what I was considering using my cav for, but I think I may try to turn them against the Hittites right now, and then swing them against Egypt. I don't know. I mean, I just don't have that many troops, but I am getting more reinforcements for the Assyrians. They're quite powerful right now, but they get more. Chaldea, I have to kill Chaldeans. Well, they're not on the board yet. They'll be coming in the Babylon area, I guess. And I have to keep anyone from taking Nineveh and defiling Ishtar. Well, the Egyptians get to go first. So the Egyptians finished off Tyre here and moved forward with a hope to take the Hittites on because they need some more hits against the Hittites. Assyria, though, wiped out most of the ones up here, and they also took, what is this? Mahdi. They gotta worry because they got a long way to go to take Elam. That's their next real goal. And speaking of which, we're on player 3 who gets to do that. Nothing much more happened, so we're pushing into turn 5. Elam pulled back. The Assyrians, or the Hittites, pulled to Aleppo. They're trying to make their way home. Pretty much used up at this point. And the extra forces you see on the board, these are new commands coming on. So we've got the Urartu up here, and they're going to be attacking the Hittites mainly, it looks like, from their victory conditions. But a bunch more Hittites showed up in here. Maybe I want to knock out the Urartu before they get their shot, but they're red, so they get first strike. This is one factor in this game, is there's a fixed ordering, and red always gets to go before purple, always gets to go before the brown, always gets to go before green. Right? Blue, sorry. Which means you have that kind of interleaving of one power over another in a Britannia, or the games that were derived from it. But in this, it's sort of a step more than that. It's all the powers of one color get to go first. Now, that's not that different in some ways, because if you think about it, blue, I think, always has the final strike against red in Britannia, and therefore, I think the better chance of winning by far. I think red has an impossible task as long as they don't manage to convince blue to ally with them in some way. But that's neither here nor there. In this case, the RR2 are going to get a first strike, maybe be able to kill some Assyrians, but they might get wiped out in doing so. And they've got additional points later. They want to be kicking around near Lake Van here. So they got to kill 12 Assyrians. That's just a couple of units. They want to take Nineveh. They're going to have to beat up the Cimmerians. That may not be possible. And they want to be in existence on turn 8 and 9. They can pretty much push their way up there as long as they don't, run too far away. The movement allowances in this game are tremendous. You can fly across the map. Hittites, where they move to, they're basically sacrificing themselves to the Egyptians. But it gives them a little bit more safety. The problem is they have a siege engine with them, which somebody might take. The Egyptians can make better use of it than the Assyrians could. I could have run around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and up to here, and then I'd get doubled. But yeah, you know what? I think I'd rather do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. The reason is the Assyrians don't have a real reason to try to kill me, but the Egyptians really do. And they're going to have a hard time getting points for killing Hittites if they got to run all the way up to Hittite homeland, which is what it looks like they'll have to do to get those points. And they may have other requirements. However, they've got some of those points in the bank. It's a fairly big amount. They need to kill 24 of them. Right now, they're at 14. So that would take pretty much wiping them out. It would take taking the city. I don't know how worthwhile that is, and this way the Hittites might be able to save their asses by running away. All right. I missed the chosen people. I'm looking over Egypt's points, and they basically get nothing themselves for the Jews. And I am not really seeing anyone else who particularly has a reason to want them in play on the Egyptian side. Now, whose are they? They're Browns. They want to kill Philistines, Assyrians, Egyptians, and they don't want to be whacked. Honestly, I don't see giving them the potential 4 points by letting them out. I actually don't see any point to doing so, any reasonable reason to do so. So I guess it's okay that I missed that opportunity. I would have backtracked it, because actually they'd be at Heliopolis last turn, then to Gaza, and then they'd be allowed to settle in Jerusalem. But why? Why do I want to give them points? What do they possibly do for me? I see no answer yet. Maybe I'll see an answer by the end of the game and be able to say, in general, I think Egypt probably does want them there. But right now, except as maybe some sort of possible anti-Assyrian defense to my back door, it's pretty damn hard to see a reason. But the Egyptians and the Urartu have attacked Assyria. The Urartu were successful and scored their points for that. 2 big points. They're worth a lot of points overall. The Egyptians only forced a retreat. That's a new result for us. And now they're kind of in a exposed position, which was, okay to do. But you kind of wish you got your points for it, because we're probably going to get hammered. But it's hard to tell, because Assyria has some major constraints on it where it needs to get Elam out of the way. Assyrians turn against the Urartu. They got a hit on them but not quite enough units to get their victory point. But they've got a lot deployed in that direction. You know what? I didn't move any of these guys. I'm going to remember to do that. But I also wiped out the Kassites. That's kind of painful because these guys really wanted to get some kills on them. That's 3 victory points that I just denied them. Of course, the Egyptians denied the Assyrians points that they'd get for taking, beating up on the Jews. Over here, we actually had some retreats. We had a rout, the first rout that I've seen. That unit's not going to be allowed to attack next time. And yeah, I'm going to try to do something with them. I don't know what, but I just screwed up by not paying attention. I think that they're going to move against Tarsus because that's one of my goals, potentially. Egyptians are chasing Assyrians around and not really getting a lot of effect out of it. And this, I think, was dead earlier, but maybe I killed it this time. And the Urartu, well, they didn't succeed either. Or, no, they did succeed. They got their mark, right? Yeah. So they get their 2 points for their attack. The Assyrians came back, and they're dragging the Babylonian god with them, Marduk. Made an attack on Tarsus down here, which didn't have any effect. And pushed back some of the Egyptians. Again, not much effect there. They killed the RR2, got their effect there. But boy, did they screw up here. They tried to get more of a grip on the Assyrians and ended up making a 2-to-1 attack and losing a pile of units. All they ended up doing, it was a mutual destruction. So they got some units dead, but now they're not really in a good position to take out Elam. And Elam got its points for killing the Assyrians. They don't have to do it on their turn. It's not, nothing's like Britannia has these rules sometimes. If killed during your turn, where you really want to attack. Here, defense is just as effective for getting the points. So it's time for the Sea Peoples after Elam and Hittites basically did nothing. For the Sea Peoples, I have to do an invasion. I have 2 choices. The Phrygians can either come in now, anywhere north of Sidon, more or less where I want to be, because my goals right now are the Hittites. And then I got to worry about the Cimmerians and Lydia, and then stick around in Hittite lands. Whatever that means. Hittite lands is not really defined, but I assume if I'm anywhere up here, that's good enough. If I do that, the Philistines are going to land on the Egyptian coast next turn. Uh-oh, Egypt doesn't have much there. We knew this danger. On the other hand, next turn, I could bring the Phrygians in within 3 of Gordium, which I think is actually the more historical, and bring the Philistines in on Palestine. Now, for the Phrygians, both work kind of well, except for one thing, which I'll get into in a moment. For the Philistines, I'm interested in Ascalon killing Egyptians and killing Assyrians. I'm not really interested in Egypt, although it would be kind of cool to wipe Egypt out and take some points away from them. So that's not entirely unappealing. But I am very worried about the Egyptians running up and attacking my Hittites that I need for victory points. So I'm going to land my Phrygians on a coastal hex north of Sidon. I got to pull them out. There's a lot of them. And they're going to basically, they get to land and move at the same time. And I got to start taking those Hittites out as quickly as possible so that the Egyptians can't get them. Did I grab Kanesh here? But I actually used some of the others in an attempt to try to knock off one of the Assyrian infantry. It retreated away to try to protect Tyre or Tarsus there. That didn't really work. So now we're moving up to turn 7. I've got some of my Hittite kills. I got to kill both of them, and I got to take the territories to get my full points for this. As we enter turn 7, I've got some Aramaeans coming in here who have a number of goals. Damascus, running from turns 8 through 12. They need to hold Kadesh at the end of the game. And they want to kill some Assyrians. since nothing happened beforehand, I repositioned my Aramaeans so they could attack here, and they took out their goal, an Assyrian unit, and that leaves the Kassite Marduk kicking around. They can't go take it though because they didn't have any advance. If they'd gone just from the rivers, they would have had a chance. They would have been able to grab it, but that wasn't that much. But now I've got the Urartu actually attacking Nineveh here, and I just went on the 2-to-1. I get my first omen. There's a chance of terrible things happening, but they do not. My liver has shown, and my fate is my own. Great. I still got to figure out what to do with my Egyptians. Okay, some exciting stuff happens as we push into turn 8. The Philistines landed in Egypt, destroyed themselves here, grabbed Ascalon for a point, killed an Egyptian unit for a point, but now they're destroyed. They wiped themselves out in a mutual destruction here. Points scored for this. Points scored for taking the Hittites out. However, it took some more losses there. And then an attack against the Assyrians here, which wiped both sides out. Probably saved me Tarsus, which is worth points. But I gave the points to the Assyrians for Tarsus because they managed to kill some Phrygians enough to qualify for the score anyway. So they don't even need to fight in Tarsus anymore. They're probably going to pull back. They've got a lot of problems here between the Aramaeans, the Egyptians, the Urartu, whatever, and this attempt to rush down to Elam. They can't, this was an iffy attack to begin with, and it's just gotten weakened. We don't have a lot of pieces left on the board overall, but it's turn 8, and we got new people coming in. More Egyptians. Oh, boy, do we need them. But everybody else is so weakened. The Cimmerians will be coming up to the north, that we assume, from our knowledge of Assyrian wars, and the Chaldeans are going to be showing up probably in this general area. Okay, and what do we see added? A couple of Egyptians, which will help us defend the homeland. And in fact, now that the sea people are gone, we can actually pull out of Memphis. As long as we kind of don't let anybody get too close, we're pretty safe. But however you want to look at that. No new red pieces here, right? Other than that, no new purplish. However, here we have the Cimmerians, or these guys here. And they want to kill everybody. Oh boy, do they. So, they get points for Urartu, 12 of them. 12 people. Assyria, 12 people. 12 Phrygians, and 12 Lydians or Medes. And then, if they kill 40 or more people, they get another bonus point there. They are a big source of points for this force. The Hittites being gone, they've already scored whatever they're worth here, which is 2, 4, 6, 7 out of the 12, which isn't too bad, I guess. Elam might score more. Judah, Israel, though, are gone because they just didn't get entered into the game. And I can't tell you whether or not that's correct, that they shouldn't have entered, because the way the Moses rules, they give all this rule about on turn 4 the Egyptian player must decide if they're allowed to leave Egypt. If they allow blah blah blah, then eventually they end up within 3 hexes of Israel. On turns 4, 5, or 6, no one may attack the chosen people piece. This rule is merely added for biblical flavor and time reference. Does that mean Judah is supposed to occur no matter what, and you're allowed to let them out and watch them move across the map or not? Or, as I read it, does that mean, because it is a goddamn rule, does it mean that the little time part is the only thing that's only there for historical reference, which is the impression that I got from reading it. But, I could read it either way and say, you should just leave that damn rule out. Okay, and we have one more new force, don't we? We have Chaldeans showing up. They show up either in Sumer or Akkad within 3 hexes of Babylon. Now, one of the things they are supposed to do is grab Makkah. They only have 1 unit at this point. They get a whole bunch more in a couple of turns when they get to kind of become Babylonia for real. Alright, another point outside this particular playing, but I won't remember it probably when I get to the review. I did look up the Ancient Conquest 2. Apparently that was printed by Excalibur Games back in '78. I've run into this a couple of times before. I don't remember what it was. There was some other game that I was interested in, and I said, "Whoa, Excalibur! Those are the guys who did reprints of Yaquinto stuff for some reason, and like this did a reprint of an expensive." eBay games. Well, the name of Excalibur Games existed before that, and I think actually they may have put out an edition of Ancient Conquest 1. But Ancient Conquest before this, it's kind of a shame that they didn't put out both versions in it. Ancient Conquest 2 is an extension of this game up to Roman times, essentially. Now, I'm sure they thought, wow, if this sells well, we'll sell the other one again, But this was sold as, I don't know, a $40 game or whatever with almost no counters. There's maybe 150 at most. Paper map sheet, a few rules, complete reprint. To me, it looks like a magazine game. It really does, and not a particularly fantastic one. But, they boxed it up and sold it for $40. Okay, great. Honestly, the Quinto stuff that they put out a good size, heavy quantity of stuff. I think it ran around the same price range. I know I got mine on sale, my copy of Wings, for less than 40. It was like $25 on sale, but and then I paid like 15 for Ironclads 2. A hard time in my life trying to get a complete set of Ironclads. But anyway, and I still have that and really ought to sell it because I have finally I have multiple copies of the Ironclads boxes from Yaquinto. But the first set of Ironclads and its expansion that I bought came without any of the ship cards. They were shrink wrapped, sold by a local dealer at a convention, and I asked him, I can't open this up, but obviously it wasn't shrink to begin with, and it's obviously used, are you sure everything's in here? He's like, that's my word of honor that it would be in there. I don't remember. I think it was Gamers Gate or something like that. Big name in the area. Something out in Mesa. And, I'll never touch the place. He didn't make a whole hell of a lot of money off me on them. They were like $20 each. And he's completely lost someone who might have been a fairly regular customer in his store by being an absolute sleazy asshole, and he was the owner actually. Anyway, I'm happier ordering things online only anyway. But yeah, it feels to me like what they gave me in this game didn't deserve the box. It didn't deserve all of this. It should have been published as a little folio game, honestly, for maybe $20. The two of them together maybe would have been worth a $40 packaging. But this convinced me. I certainly didn't pay the full price on this sucker. I bought it used, probably under 20. But it convinces me that I'm not going to touch anything else by Excalibur unless I absolutely know what it is and, what I'm getting in it. Now here on turn 8 we're seeing a lot of retrenchment going on. I'm halfway through. The Egyptians kind of pulling back. They killed an Assyrian here to get their score on that. The Aramaeans pulling back. They had to kill some Assyrians, which is why they were way out there. But you can see the Assyrians also pulling from Tarsus. It's no longer valuable to them. And setting up for maybe a possibility of taking this and this. That's probably the only victory point thing they can do right now that helps them. These Hittites. Elamites. Yeah, I'm not going to get the points for the Elamites, am I? I've withdrawn from that. This would be the last turn I could have gotten there. I had a force that I had heading down that way, but it couldn't quite reach. I actually don't care about the number of Elamites that I kill at all. I just care about taking their home. So put them away too, just to prevent confusion, because, you know, having extra counters kicking around that aren't going to score. It's hard enough trying to keep track of things with the counters upside down near the board or whatever. And now, and the Assyrians is kind of a bitch move. They sent the marsh people out to kill the Chaldeans here, just to prevent them from getting the points from Mahdi. And there's a danger to making bitch moves, though, because the combat chart is so random. So they were making, I think, a 3-to-1 attack, but they could get an exchange, no worse than that. 2-to-1, you can still get the both smote, which is pretty damn bad. The States and Phrygians didn't do much. The Cimmerians came down before them, smacked, got their 12 points of Assyrians. I can't bag those yet, though, because the Assyrians, they got their points for Assyria, but they've got to see if they can get 40 kills total. I'm sure they can. I'm sure the Cimmerians are going to be able to kill lots of stuff. They're not a huge force, but it's pretty easy to pick off, you know, a unit here, a unit there of each force. And especially, most people don't really care, although I think the Aratru want to kill some of them, the Phrygians want to kill some of them, so they could, you know, be too worn down by the time they get to their later things. One question, let's take a look at the Cimmerians, for example. They get more points for the Phrygians, Lydians, and Medes. Nah, it's about the same, really. You know, it's a matter of they want to do damage to everyone, and it's all about equal. It's not like they should maybe withhold from attacking early in the game in order to get some of the later bonuses. I saw some of the people, it was pretty clear that there were things like that. So, for example, maybe not. The Hittites are worth 3 here, and so are the Chaldeans and the Egyptians. This seems to be more how big the enemy is, and maybe how big a hit you have to do to them. Anyway, on to turn 9. So, the Egyptians have kind of pulled back, the Aramaeans pulling back, Aratru staying back here because they could score their points. They get points for being near the lake. Mainly, I've been just sacking Assyrian units for no real good reason, except I think Assyria is doing fairly well, and they've still got a decent number of points available to them. So if I can weaken them, that's cool. And also, I want to get my Aratru into Nineveh at some point, which seems to me to be a valuable, softening them up will make that easier. It was brought to my attention that someone made the claim that Judah is of the same faction, the same color as the Egyptians. Well, obviously not in my game, but perhaps in the original design they were, and then that rule makes sense. There seems to have been an unwillingness. Obviously, they made graphical changes to the rules, I think, but there seems to be an unwillingness to change the rules based on changes they made to the game, which is, frankly, the first edition was also Excalibur, by the way. This was the old Excalibur, though. Yeah, I think Doc Cummins bought Excalibur and then merged it with Decision Games, and maybe saved Decision Games financially that way or whatever. But my feeling is he wasn't the guy running Excalibur, or his philosophy switched or something like that. Where it went from designing some kind of weird little games, maybe he just bought the name because it seemed like a cool name and it had some good product with it, like this, that he wanted to re-release, or whatever. I'm not sure, but certainly the focus of the company has changed over, well, it's been 50 years, right? No, 40 years. But even into the 90s, Excalibur was a pure reprint company. And Decision Games still prints their own stuff now, as well as the SPI reprints. So I think Excalibur is just a branding thing. Anyway, the decision to kind of rework the graphics in the sense of getting rid of the dots, which may have been confusing originally, but not fix that in the rolls. Maybe to shuffle the balance and change who's on what side, but not fix the rolls to reflect that. That's all par for the course for Decision Games. Their reprints seem to be half-assed jobs. You know, they could do a pure reprint, which would be fine, or they could do a real redevelopment and try to fix it. But they seem to kind of get the job half done. All right, let's keep going in the game, I guess. And we make it through to turn 10. Oh, I've had a hell of a lot else happening. The Assyrians whacked an Aramaean. They actually got a surrender result. And I thought about trying to keep the peace in case the Aramaeans got a surrender result on me, but I think they want... No, they've killed one of mine. You know, but it just seems like such a hassle to try to trade pieces, so I just executed them. It's one of the things, this is a very simple game with a few little kind of quirky little rules like the surrender rule that feel like a total pain in the ass to implement within, you know, to actually execute using that rule. So, they might add some interesting flavor to the game, hauling the guy back to a city or whatever, and, you know, keeping him there for an exchange. But on the other hand, if I have one of their pieces, that may entice the Aramaeans to try to attack to make a prisoner exchange, where maybe they're more inclined to go back to Damascus, especially as they get weaker and weaker. The Cimmerians decided to ignore the Uratru. They have to attack them in the mountains. They're tripled there. I just couldn't get a good grasp on them, and I don't see wasting my forces in that way. I have Phrygians to kill. They look like they're in somewhat less effective position. Actually, I think I ought to move them all into good terrain, though. Actually, we'll protect the city a little more. We don't want to lose that. That's of some value to us. The Carchemish have left. As far as I can tell, they're one power with Tarsus, so they can actually stack and operate together, and it seems to me that I need to survive another turn with Tarsus. We got some troops coming in on turn 10. That may be a problem. Lydia, I think, shows up here, and they're going to be a difficulty for me. Maybe my last turn to really need to survive. And then after that, I don't know what to do with them. You know, I can commit them to help the Phrygians, or I can commit them over down to Babylon. They don't really have a purpose in the game anymore. The Elamites want to stay here for the rest of the game. They have actually enough pieces to take the 3 territories they have to take if they get really lucky and somebody else cleans the Chaldeans out of there. I guess that's about it. I'll do the setup. I think I'm better off splitting the video at this point. I'll take care of the setup, but you know, for the next video for turn 10, and I'm gonna send this one up because it's fairly long, and there's still enough turns that it's gonna go to like an hour and a half. I like to avoid that when possible. I don't mind so much when there's a really good breaking point, but you know, like Fire in the Lake, I did one because it was a 1-year turn, and I just couldn't bring myself to stop ever.